It is said that there are no atheists in foxholes. I don't know about that. I've never been in a foxhole. I offered, but, despite liking me as a person, even with the fact that I'm a bit of an eccentric and a bit of a softie, the army didn't think I'd be okay. So they said no when I offered. But there's plenty of others who did. And one of them, who was called up, was my granddad, who was part of the National Service generation, as they were called. Yeah. Now, he didn't deploy overseas, didn't even tell me any of the stories of his National Service days, except for the fact that because of when he was born in 1932, and which would mean he turned 18 in November 1950, and the Korean War started in June of 1950. I wondered whether he'd been to Korea, but he said no. By the time he was called up and they'd done the year or so basic training, they weren't sending new people to Korea, but one of his friends died in Korea. And perhaps after he passed away in 2008, they met up again. But, one of the stories he did tell me, hence the Big Mac you'll see on TV on the screen now, is that of one time he was a civilian working for the MOD out of RAF Cranwell. And the army, they were going to a rugby game with some of the officers. A military rugby game, and well, Grandad had never been to McDonald's before. Hadn't really heard of it much. He'd seen the adverts on television, and so when he got there, he ordered a Big Mac, because the Big Mac was what he knew from the ads. And he said it tasted like cardboard. Well, he was a very traditional man, my granddad, in a lot of ways. Hard-working Lancastrian, loved his rugby, loved his family, loved his country. Big fan of Margaret Thatcher, which, given how pro-Labour my mum is, gave them a lot to talk about. But, well, they never let their disagreements on politics get in the way of their father-daughter relationship. And who knows? Maybe the way life is in the military kind of might have had something to do with it. I don't know. Maybe it did. Grandad, because after all, not every military person is like my granddad. There's all sorts of different beliefs, values, all kinds of people. And we talk about values a lot on this channel, but all kinds of people go into the military. All kinds of reasons, all kinds of beliefs, all kinds of identities. Here's some of Britain's soldiers at Pride, and here's others at the Living Islam Festival. Because you know what? Gays and Muslims have served this country. So why not? Yeah, all sorts of people, all sorts of talents, gifts and skills, some of which people didn't even realise they had until they served. And all kinds of people. I mean, here we have a picture of Audie Murphy as well, America's most decorated World War II soldier, what I read. He was originally turned down for military service because he was underage and underweight, and only 5 foot 5.5 inches, so was seen as rather short. But still, that's a part of the point of the military. Different kinds of people from different backgrounds, different values, different ways of life, all coming together, have to work together. And not so much putting it to one side, but putting it all on the line. And hey, interestingly enough, as an entertainer myself, seeing quite a few entertainers having had military experience. I mean, here, Norman Wisdom, some of my teachers at school, the older teachers that is, used to say I reminded them of Norman Wisdom. Not entirely sure how, because I've never seen his works, but, you know, he was in the 10th Royal Hussars and the Royal Corps of Signals after having served in the Merchant Navy. And Kenneth Williams, of course, he was a Royal Engineer during the Second World War. Frankie Howard was a bombardier. Yeah. Although, from what I read on his Wikipedia page, as he put it, he was stuck on a boat on D-Day. Kind of like my great-granddad Frank, although he was stuck in a hospital on D-Day, from what we can tell. And of course, some still live. You know, we got Mel Brooks, one of my own comedy inspirations. He served in the Second World War as an engineer in the US military, clearing landmines. And, well, then there's also Michael Caine, who was of the National Service generation as well. And he served in Korea. And, well, as he put in, as I read on his Wikipedia page, I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not sure how YouTube would cope with this, with the language used, but there was a time where he talked about how he thought he was about to die whilst in the Korean War, and he said that he'd lived it, and that he's lived every moment ever since. And maybe there's another thing about it, you know, finding that sort of humour, because I'll be honest with you, while, you know, the sacrifices made warrant the very reverent respect that Remembrance gives, that's in a way sort of juxtaposed with the kind of irreverent humour that's often found in military life. You know, soldiers would often sing about, you know, joke about and sing about things that frustrated them. You know, not, you know, longing for the day where they didn't have to get up really early in the morning, or stand on parade, or the army stew would sometimes have a few jabs at it. Now, you know, some of them songs sing about they much rather hang around Piccadilly Underground, living off the earnings of a high-class lady, or you know, not singing about how they don't want to go to war. And let's face it, for everyone, people who might be watching this may well have pacifist beliefs and may not like war, and hey, quite a lot of military people don't like war either. You know, singing about, and hey, they even sang about that, how they don't, you know, they don't want a bayonet up their backside, and they don't want their private shot away, and those are the more polite versions of the lyrics. Core blimey. Yeah. And say, you know, I'm not going to repeat those for the sake of YouTube, and so, you know, what they were suggesting their sergeant major got up to with the regimental fife, you'll have to find out for yourselves. But I don't want to give a sort of bad image of the military, but more a human image, because it's a brutal kind of affair, war. You know, it's not about glorifying war, the poppy isn't. You know, it wouldn't mean anything if war was glorious. It's tough. It's you know, some of the worst days people ever go through, from what I've been able to find out. People going through some of the hardest days ever in their lives, and sometimes even never having any more to come, as they make the ultimate sacrifice. And sometimes it doesn't go to death, but they'll have to live with what they went through, maybe physically, of course mentally as well, leading back to Audie Murphy, who for years was struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder from what he experienced in the various campaigns he served in, and all the struggles of war. For a long time people were left to suffer in silence, or try and find medications to cope. I mean, Audie Murphy had that problem as well. Often given medicines that people perhaps thought were working at the time, but were more masking the symptoms rather than actually treating the problem. These days, mental health care for our veterans is a lot better than it used to be. Perhaps there's, still a long way to go, but it's a tough thing to go through. And, there's no prosthetic for mental health injuries. And hey, prosthetics for physical injuries are nowhere near the same. But hey, and not everyone gets PTSD from military service, and it's often very misunderstood. Hence why I've tried to bring out, some of the ways people have coped differently with the trials and hurt of war. Because there's a lot to go through, and I just want to talk a bit about hope. Hope that one day the sacrifices will be remembered, and there won't have to be that present tense added to it. There won't have to be that sort of thing of were and still are, but every land and every people will be able to live in peace and harmony with respect and justice. But no more will wars hurt people. Something to hope for, perhaps, and just want to maybe sing to rest those who've gone before, those who are still going through, and because, they weren't the tombstones that were sent over the top on the 1st of July 1916, or who crested the waves to land on the beaches of Normandy, or who held at the Imjin River, or the Chosin Reservoir, or any other engagement. Peoples of the world have been engaging one another for all these things, and putting people into the firing line. All manner of hopes, dreams, values, fears, worries, families, lives. And just hope one day that their sacrifice will not be forgotten and not be in vain either. Here's a little old song, but perhaps it might help. Up to mighty London came an Irish lad one day. All the streets were paved with gold and everyone was gay, singing songs of Piccadilly, Strand and Leicester Square, till Paddy got excited and he shouted to them there. It's a long way to Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. Paddy wrote a letter to his Irish Molly-o, saying, should you not receive it, write and let me know. If I make mistakes in spelling, Molly dear, said he, remember it's the pen that's bad, don't lay the blame on me. It's a long way to Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest gal I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. Molly wrote a neat reply to Irish Paddy-o, saying Mike Maloney wants to marry me, and so leave the Strand and Piccadilly, or you'll be to blame, for love has fairly drove me silly, hoping you're the same. It's a long way to Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. So I just want to say to all those who've served and are serving, all those who gave it all, and just want to say thank you to our armed services and those who look after them. It was lovely having you here.